Welcome to Module 5. We're about halfway through. We're going to talk in Module 5 about promoting functional communication. As we've talked about in our autism overview and all the other modules, that sometimes communication in and of itself, challenges with communication, can be a huge frustration for the person with autism. It can be a frustration for us too, as if we can't figure out what that person wants or needs. What we're going to talk about in this module is getting some ideas about the different types and varieties of functional communication, as well as what kind of responses we can help teach our students to increase their quality of life, giving them access to more things that they want or need. So we're going to talk today about promoting functional communication. About 1/3 to 1/2 of people with autism have some sort of struggles with using speech and communication functionally. Many students develop their own style or mode of communication. How many of you have ever met somebody that maybe uses scripts from different movies or shows? Sometimes people will say that that's not functional or that it's not communicative. I beg to differ. I've seen many times where a person with autism may use a script from a cartoon or a movie to share how they're feeling on the inside and communicate with the external world using scripts from other media. So what is functional? That's one thing that you're going to unwrap in this module is what does it mean for communication to actually function for the person? And they have to be able to get something that they want or need, and the person that they're communicating with has to be able to understand that and interpret it. Something that is not functional also is just saying one label for every food item. Maybe if the person says cookie over and over, but they're really meaning a whole variety of foods, they could be getting really frustrated if we don't understand. We want to, in this module, unwrap and look and see what is functional for that person. And how do the caregivers, the teachers and the paraprofessionals and mentors understand that person's communication? Okay, some do not communicate verbally. Some people with autism don't communicate verbally. Some students do, but through, like we talked about, echolalia, which is that kind of repeating of things that were just said, or repeating phrases or sounds from the environment. Some people will just maybe struggle with eye contact, difficulty with their pitch, or their rate, or their tone, or their volume. I want to go back to eye contact for a second because it's very important to remember that people with autism are telling us through their stories and anecdotes that looking another person in the eye takes a whole ton of effort and can actually be even painful or really unpleasant. And so for all of us to keep pushing, like look me in the eye, look me in the eye, up here, eyes up here, eyes up here, we've got to surrender that old way of thinking. We've got to let go of that because people with autism will tell us, I can either look you in the eye or I can listen to what you're trying to tell me or communicate, but I can't do both. We need to start to respect that. That eye contact can be a very painful thing and unpleasant for our friends with autism. Now, there are times when we can encourage them to use it, but let us avoid forcing them to make eye contact. Difficulties with pitch, tone, volume, those could be related to the previous modules. Some of those could be sensory issues. Maybe it's a physical issue. Maybe they don't hear their voice the same way that others do. Maybe they can't tell that they're using a really high pitch or a really low pitch or a slow rate of speech or tone that's kind of flat. Some of that we need to accept as that's who the person is. But if maybe they're going for an interview and they would like some help with how to use more inflection, those are things that we can help with. Okay, communication also affects how they interpret others. Meaning they might not pick up on, your students might not pick up on a lot of nonverbal cues. Like if you're doing that, they might not understand what that means. That's a nonverbal thing. Or if they do this. If you do this to your student as in like, shh, time to be quiet, then maybe they can't decode that. Figurative language, we'll talk about that in this module, and using figures of speech, idioms, versus concrete language. We're going to talk about body language and how that's a form of communication, facial expressions and what the face and the human face tells us, and how hard that can be for some of our friends with autism to decode sometimes. I'm going to talk about different types of communication. So there, of course, is verbal speech. But you might have a student that guides you or leads you by the hand to things that they want or need. A student might use eye contact to get your attention, to show you what they want. Some folks use gestures to point or show. Other students might have sign language that they use to communicate. Sometimes a student will have a picture communication exchange system or some other picture communication system, or verbal communication, or a whole combination of a lot of those different strategies. So it's up to you to really learn more about what the types of communication are and relate that to the student that you're focusing on for this course, and how you might help them enhance their types and modes of communication, as well as come up with responses and communication goals for them that will help them improve their quality of life. All right, so takeaway message: behavior is communicative. Challenging behaviors tend to decrease when communication strategies increase for that behavior. You can explore a variety of technology and other augmentative communication systems to go with verbal practice or sign. The ultimate goal is for our students to become as independent as possible with the communication system that fits their needs. In this module, you have what I think is one of the most incredible videos I've ever seen, called In My Language. Hang in there until the end of it, because that's where the kicker comes, and you need to stick with that video. It's a wonderful video. And you'll also see a young man using his iPad to communicate. You've got some handouts that talk about social communication, as well as augmentative and alternative communication like technology devices or pictures. And then a great data sheet to kind of continue your data exploration for your student, and that's the critical communication skills checklist. That's something you can go through for the students that you're targeting for this course and complete to see which responses they might need more help with. So that's going to all add to that portfolio and collecting data and starting to think about functional communication. You're really cruising now, you're really building, and it's getting more intricate. And we're about halfway there, so looking forward to Module 6. We'll see you then.